Riven, the sequel to Myst. This was a sequel that was in development for a little while. And I can't say I was disappointed when it came out. I'm trying to recall if I got this before Myst or not, but it wasn't necessarily needed to play. Well, wasn't necessarily to have completed Myst before you played Riven, although Riven makes a little more sense after you play Myst. But it was made basically in the same way Myst was made, and it is a very, very beautiful setup that they have created. And it was simple to play, a simple point and click, although some of the puzzles were a little bit more elaborate. And it is a beautiful setup. Now, of course, it ties in beautifully. And as I said, it makes sense when you play it, more sense when you play it after Myst. And I remember the copy I got. It was actually made. It actually came with a strategy guide, which I think was unheard of at the time. I think very few games at that time came with strategy guides given, and a lot of, even nowadays, well, while they were still the thing to get, a lot of stores would give you a discount on the guide if you bought it with the game. But what made this so beautiful, I mean, even the guide was divided into sections depending on how easy you wanted it or how simple you wanted it. But I digress from the game. I mean, this is a game that was beautiful. And it picked up the story beautifully. When you go to Atris, he asks for your help. And he tells you because of reasons he can't send you with a linking book back. And your mission is to save Catherine and stop his father. Of course, this is not outright explained to you right away. I think it's not how do you do it. He gives you a special book, which is automatically taken from you right in the beginning, and you are landed into a world that is apparently in some sort of civil dispute. You also land in a bunch of islands which are so beautiful to behold. I think demos of this actually put you on the second island or at a different location. But it was beautifully designed at the time because you needed to insert a different disc for whichever island you were on, which adds to the beauty of the game. And since you didn't have much to carry around, it was another beautiful thing to keep it simple. And I also remember when I got this game, each disc was in a sleeve that denoted which the order of some stained glass windows that you saw in the game later. So this is another good example of the games coming with extra information in them. It was also the first time we get introduced to the numbering system. The Dunny, spelled D-N-I, actually D''Ni, use. And that was another beautiful thing because it was done as a base 25 system. And it makes you wonder, how did they pull that off? Especially since they didn't necessarily use the same numbering system. They didn't use Arabic numbers like like a majority of the world uses. And this is where it was beautiful. They had like four symbols for 1 through 5, well, 1 through 4. And then when you hit 5, it's another symbol. It's the 1 at turn 90 degrees. And then you just add the 1, 2, 3, 4 to it. 10 would be the 2 symbol rotated 90 degrees. It was beautiful. And the game teaches you a bit of how the numbers work. It's actually key to solving one of the puzzles in the game. And I think that's actually one of the few things they've set up that actually changes from play to play is this number combination you need. And what they also did was some beautiful setup of how some clues were hidden. I mean, they included stuff to have a sound to help put you in order with numbers on it. And you have to find the images that go with each of these sounds because, and it's all linked to, quote, wooden eyes. And when you find some of these wooden eyes, it doesn't look like they fit. I mean, one of the symbols is a frog. And when you find the eye, it doesn't even look like it goes with anything, but you hear a sound that gets associated with a frog later. Yet if you climb up some steps and turn around, there you see the frog. And it's brilliant. Very brilliant. And that's part of the beauty of this game. The puzzles were set up. And when you think it, you're in a world that's in strife. And some of the people have to go in hiding. The good people have to go into hiding. So they need to do something that makes it hard for others to find the information they need to invade. But the people who are knowledgeable will actually look around and search and find the stuff. And that's the beauty of it. And thankfully, they did not use any, quote, slider bar puzzles. Nothing too complex like that was in Myst. And I think that's part of the charm. You have to use the right way of thinking. Logical, simplistic. Some of the puzzles require some logic because some of your clues you can't find. And some of the items you have to locate, you have to find some maps. You can't necessarily grab all the information right away. And it's beautiful because even though there's some characters you can't understand what they're saying, you could get the gist of what's going on. And it adds to the overall story of the series. And you have to know that after this game came out, or around the same time this game came out, they were expanding more on the lore of the series with some books that were released. I'll go into more on them later in a later retrospective when we get through the other three games, and as well as Uru. But I will mention the one because in turn it is important to understanding the events that we are going into. And that was the first Myst book that was released, which is the Book of Atris, which explains how this situation came about, how Atris met his wife, who you must rescue. And even she won't trust you at first. And depending on how things play out, you can't necessarily go to her right away. Everything you need can be found in the game. You very rarely have to go to an outside source to try and figure something out. And again, this is where these games are supposed to be easy to play, and they also develop that rich storyline. And when you finally end Riven, the ending sort of shows you why the opening of Myst is the way it is. And that is the beauty of it. Now, I also will admit that one of the most fascinating things I saw in this game was that you could actually see some of these creatures that are in this world. You would see beetles flying about, and you have to take note. You will take notice of one of them because you need to hear the sound it makes. You will see a frog later on. So if you didn't catch the, quote, symbology of the eye, you would hear the sound. There is an eye that doesn't seem to go with a silhouette, yet it's with some creature, for a creature that they have dubbed Sunners. And you can get close to these majestic things if you don't rush, because they are easily startled. And there is a creature called a Wark. And when you see this thing, it is majestic as much as it can be fearsome. You can actually instigate it into aggressively trying to get you. Don't worry, you're safe where you are when you see it. The music is brilliant. I was one of the earlier game soundtracks that I purchased. I think I actually purchased the soundtrack to Riven before I found the soundtrack to Myst. And it's beautiful music. I'd take time to listen to it at least once or twice in your life. I've heard it many times, and it's very soothing music. Even for the, quote, tenser moments, it is soothing. But another thing was that I don't think they were ever intending to, quote, record or make another game after that. So even if the series had ended and never got another made, at least it had closure at that point. And I even remember one other thing, and this is a very ironic memory. I remember playing through the game, and I had saved it at one point, having to come back to it, and the damnedest thing had happened. I restored the game, and I was in a section I had never been to before in that playthrough. I had somehow been transported to Gen's lair, and I'm like, how the hell did this happen? I even called them and reported the weirdness of it, and they're like, "You're kidding? That happened?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious. That actually happened." I mean, this was before time you could take a decent screenshot of it, but it's definitely a beautiful game. I recommend anyone playing it. I recommend learning the story of it. And in some ways, you can feel fulfilled if you end the series there. If you don't, which of course I also do, I recommend you don't end it there. You want to really get into the Myst series then. And it is very, very nice. It's a must play for anyone. And that is all I really have to say about Riven, the sequel to Myst. If you're still listening, thank you. And I appreciate if you give this a thumbs up or a like. And take the time to get a copy of Myst. You can find it up on Steam. You can find it up on GOG. I really do recommend it because the Myst games are not just games, they're experiences. And if you really want to go the full experience, well, I'll explain more in that in a future retrospective. Again, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, Rich Gen X elsewhere. Take care and have fun.